A woman respects the man who knows when to leave because his strength isn't in holding on, but in walking away with dignity. He doesn't beg, chase, or shrink himself. His silence is power, his boundaries are clarity, and his self-worth reminds her that real respect begins with the man who respects himself first. A man who knows when to leave demonstrates emotional discipline, not desperation, because his choices come from clarity rather than fear. He understands that holding on to something that is slipping away doesn't create security. It destroys dignity. His strength lies not in winning someone over or proving his worth, but in recognizing when a situation no longer honors his emotional well-being. Walking away is not an act of weakness for him. It is a declaration that he refuses to be controlled by insecurity or attachment. He chooses self-respect over temporary comfort because he knows comfort without respect is nothing more than emotional quicksand. Emotional discipline means he doesn't react impulsively. He doesn't chase after someone who is pulling away, nor does he cling to a connection that is turning into a source of confusion. Instead, he pauses, observes, and listens to what is not being said. When the energy shifts, when the tone changes, when affection becomes inconsistent, he doesn't go into panic mode. He doesn't beg for attention or scramble for answers. He trusts the truth he sees. This ability to remain grounded when emotions are high sets him apart. It shows that he is governed by his principles, not his impulses. A desperate man tries to force outcomes. He fights to stay where he is not valued because he believes leaving means losing. But a disciplined man knows that losing himself is the only real loss. When he walks away, he isn't trying to punish anyone. He's preserving his inner stability. He doesn't need chaos disguised as love, nor does he settle for mixed signals dressed up as affection. He knows that unhealthy attachment often masquerades as devotion, and he refuses to accept a relationship that thrives on uncertainty. His emotional discipline allows him to detach from what is hurting him without needing closure from the one who caused the hurt. Women respect this kind of man because he moves from strength. His ability to leave communicates confidence, independence, and internal balance. He is not tied to the outcome, he is tied to his value. When he chooses himself, he forces the other person to see what they took for granted. His absence becomes a mirror, showing the quality of his presence that may not have been appreciated before. By walking away, he breaks the cycle of emotional games and redefines the dynamic from one of powerlessness to one of self-guidance. He understands that sometimes leaving is the only way to reset the energy. Staying in a space where he isn't met with the same intensity or intention only diminishes him. So he leaves, not with bitterness or anger, but with quiet strength. And that quiet strength speaks louder than any argument or explanation ever could. Walking away shows he values self-worth over temporary validation because he refuses to trade his dignity for a moment of attention. A man who truly understands his worth knows that being chosen out of convenience, loneliness, or manipulation is never the same as being genuinely valued. Temporary validation feels good in the moment, but he knows it comes with a cost, a slow erosion of his self-esteem. So when he walks away, he is choosing long-term emotional strength over short-term ego boosts. This kind of man doesn't measure his importance by how much someone needs him in a weak moment. He measures it by how someone treats him consistently. If the affection is conditional, if the communication is inconsistent, or if the connection only exists when it benefits the other person, he refuses to stay just to feel wanted. That kind of validation is empty. It fades quickly and leaves him feeling even more disconnected. He knows that validation that can be taken away at any moment is not validation at all. It's dependency dressed as affection. When he walks away, he is telling himself that he deserves more than crumbs. He deserves emotional reciprocity. He deserves someone who chooses him with clarity, not confusion. His self-worth becomes the compass that guides his decisions. He doesn't wait to be mistreated repeatedly before recognizing that a situation is draining him. He doesn't stay hoping things will magically change. Instead, he honors his inner truth and respects his emotional boundaries. Walking away is his way of saying, I matter too. Temporary validation often keeps people stuck in loops, chasing mixed signals, trying to prove themselves, fighting for someone's attention. But he sees through that. He knows that begging for basic respect or competing for affection is a sign that something is deeply wrong. His value is not up for negotiation. He doesn't need someone else to confirm his worth. He already carries it within himself. This inner confidence gives him the strength to leave situations that others would cling to out of fear. Women respect this kind of man because he isn't driven by insecurity. He isn't swayed by flattery or guilt. He doesn't fall apart when someone withdraws. Instead, he stands firm in his truth. His ability to walk away communicates emotional maturity. It shows that he is not seeking validation from others to fill a void within himself. He knows how to stand alone without collapsing. His independence makes him magnetic because it's rare. Most people don't know how to let go of something that gives them even a small sense of comfort. His self-worth shines brightest when he chooses himself over someone who doesn't choose him fully. Walking away becomes an act of empowerment. It resets his emotional balance and reminds him that peace is more valuable than presence. By stepping away from temporary validation, he protects his heart, preserves his dignity, and keeps his life aligned with the respect he knows he deserves. His silence speaks louder than arguments because he understands that not every situation deserves his energy. A man who chooses peace over chaos is not passive. He is powerful. He knows that reacting aggressively or emotionally to every conflict only fuels more conflict. His silence is not avoidance. It is intentional self-control. It's the decision to protect his mind, his dignity, and his emotional balance rather than trying to prove a point that doesn't need proving. When he chooses silence, he is choosing clarity over confusion, stability over noise, and strength over insecurity. Arguments often arise from the need to be right, to be heard, or to defend oneself, but he knows that people decide what they want to hear long before the conversation begins. If someone is determined to misunderstand him, attack him, or draw him into emotional war, words won't fix it. He refuses to fight battles where the outcome is already predetermined. His silence becomes his shield. It keeps him from participating in drama that drains him. It protects his sanity. He knows that walking away from chaos is smarter than trying to control it. He also understands the power of emotional neutrality. When he stays silent during chaos, he is signaling that he will not be pulled into someone else's storm. His composure communicates strength in a way raised voices never could. Anyone can lash out when pushed, but it takes a grounded, self-aware man to stay calm when provoked. His silence forces the other person to confront their own intensity without him feeding it. In many cases, his calmness reveals their chaos more clearly than any argument ever could. Silence does not mean he doesn't care. It means he cares too much about himself to lose control. He prioritizes his peace because he knows chaos destroys connection, destroys communication, and destroys self-respect. When he refuses to argue, he's choosing emotional intelligence over emotional reactivity. He knows his value is not determined by how loudly he fights, but by how gracefully he handles conflict. A man who can stay silent in heated moments is a man who has mastered his inner world. Women respect a man who can choose silence wisely because it shows discipline and depth. It shows that he is not easily manipulated by emotional tests, guilt, or pressure. When tension rises, he does not crumble or explode. He grounds himself. His stillness becomes a reminder that not every disagreement needs a dramatic reaction. His silence says, "I'm not here to compete with your chaos. I'm here to preserve my peace." His silence isn't about withdrawing love or shutting down communication. It's about refusing to escalate a situation that doesn't need escalation. It's the courage to pause, breathe, and respond later with clarity rather than react instantly with emotion. And in relationships, this ability is rare. It brings stability, safety, and maturity. He knows that the loudest person is not the strongest. The calmest one is. And every time he chooses silence over chaos, he proves that true power lies in self-control, not in speaking the most words. His silence becomes his strength, and that strength earns deep respect. Women respect the man who refuses to participate in situations that diminish him because his boundaries reflect an inner strength that cannot be manipulated or shaken. He is not afraid to step back from dynamics that undermine his dignity. He doesn't stay where he is disrespected, tolerated, or taken for granted. Instead, he distances himself from anything that forces him to shrink, compromise his values, or abandon his self-respect. This refusal to engage in demeaning situations reveals the depth of his maturity and self-awareness. It tells the world that he understands his value and will not allow anyone to rewrite it. He sees clearly when a situation is no longer healthy. He doesn't need yelling, drama, or emotional games to signal that something is wrong. The moment he senses his presence being undervalued, he pulls back, not to punish, but to protect himself. He doesn't cling to someone who treats him like an option. He doesn't justify poor treatment. He doesn't chase explanations from someone who already knows what they're doing. Instead, he removes himself from the emotional battlefield and chooses a higher path. That decision alone separates him from men who stay trapped in cycles of disrespect simply because they fear being alone or losing someone. This man understands that participating in situations that diminish him only teaches others that it is acceptable to treat him poorly. If he tolerates disrespect, he reinforces it. But when he walks away, he sends a message: I will not be part of anything that lowers my standards. His choices teach people how to engage with him. His boundaries become the blueprint for how he must be treated. And that kind of clarity is rare and incredibly attractive. Women respect him because refusing to engage in demeaning situations shows emotional intelligence. He doesn't respond to provocations, insults, or manipulative behavior with anger or desperation. He doesn't argue to prove his worth. He doesn't seek validation from someone who continually disrespects him. Instead, he recognizes the difference between a problem to solve and a pattern to leave. His detachment is not coldness, it is wisdom. He knows that staying in a toxic or diminishing environment only weakens him, and he refuses to lose himself in the process. This refusal to participate in negativity also reflects confidence. A man insecure in his worth feels compelled to fight for attention, even if it costs him his peace. But a confident man walks away because he knows what he brings to the table. He understands that respect is non-negotiable. He doesn't beg for it. He doesn't plead for it. He expects it because he gives it. And if respect is not given, he removes himself entirely. Women admire this in him because it shows he has direction, purpose, and self-control. It shows he is not controlled by emotion, but guided by principle. He knows that the right relationship will never require him to compromise his dignity. And until he finds that alignment, he will not settle for anything less. Women respect him because he respects himself first, and that is the foundation of every powerful man. Leaving at the right moment resets the power dynamic and restores clarity because it interrupts a cycle that was drifting into imbalance. When a man senses that the connection is becoming one-sided, confusing, or emotionally manipulative, stepping back becomes a strategic act of self-respect. He understands that staying in a space where he is undervalued only reinforces the imbalance. By choosing to leave, he shifts the dynamic instantly, not by force, not by confrontation, but by withdrawing his presence. And presence is the one thing people don't appreciate until it's gone. When he leaves, everything that was taken for granted suddenly becomes visible. His effort, his consistency, his loyalty, his energy, things she may have overlooked come into focus. The silence he creates forces reflection. It allows reality to surface without emotional noise. Distance becomes the mirror that reveals what proximity was hiding. In that space, she can no longer ignore the contrast between what he offered and what she contributed. His absence exposes the truth, and that truth restores clarity for both of them. Walking away also breaks emotional patterns that were keeping the connection stuck. If he was over-giving, over-explaining, or over-investing, leaving instantly resets the balance. It removes the expectation that he will always be there no matter how he is treated. It removes the illusion that he needs her attention more than she needs his presence. It removes the dynamic where one person holds the emotional power while the other constantly tries to prove themselves. By stepping back, he stops the imbalance at its core. His absence communicates what words never could. This reset is powerful because it allows both people to see the relationship from a distance. The emotional fog lifts, the confusion disappears. He begins to see what the connection truly was, not what he hoped it would be. She begins to see his value without the comfort of him being readily available. With time and space, clarity rises to the surface. Either the connection was built on genuine respect, or it depended on his emotional effort alone. Leaving reveals this with painful accuracy. Women respect a man who can leave at the right moment because it shows emotional intelligence and timing. It shows he doesn't cling when things are falling apart. It shows he knows when his presence no longer adds value to the situation. Most people stay too long, hoping things will fix themselves, but he understands that nothing changes while he's still participating in the same dynamic. Change begins when he removes himself. That choice resets everything, not out of manipulation, but out of wisdom. Leaving is not abandonment. It's not punishment. It's not revenge. It's the decision to step back so that clarity can take over where confusion once lived. It's the courage to choose peace over attachment. It's the strength to let the situation expose itself. And when the dust settles, the truth always becomes clear. The one who had the courage to leave is the one who had the strength to see things as they really are. He knows that love is not proven by begging, chasing, or convincing. It's proven by standards because real connection doesn't require a performance. A man who understands this has learned that love rooted in fear or desperation is not love at all. It is attachment. And attachment built on insecurity always leads to imbalance. He refuses to participate in a dynamic where he must constantly prove his worth, compete for attention, or chase after someone who isn't meeting him halfway. Instead, he lets his standards speak for him, his boundaries, his expectations, his self-respect. These are the true indicators of how deeply he values himself and the relationship he desires. He understands that anyone can chase, but chasing rarely leads to something meaningful. Chasing creates an unequal dynamic where one person becomes the giver and the other becomes the gatekeeper. This imbalance creates pressure, and pressure destroys authenticity. The moment he starts begging or convincing, he knows the foundation is already broken. So he chooses a different path. He stands in his worth. He shows up fully with honesty, consistency, and intention, but he never goes against his principles to secure affection. If love requires sacrificing his dignity, it's not a love worth having. His standards aren't about arrogance or pride, they are about emotional clarity. He knows exactly what he brings to the table: loyalty, effort, presence, masculinity, purpose. And because he knows what he offers, he also knows what he deserves. He doesn't settle for half interest, mixed signals, or temporary emotions. He understands that the right connection will recognize his value without needing to be convinced. A woman who is aligned with him will meet his energy naturally, not reluctantly. She will choose him with the same clarity he chooses her. A man who lives by standards realizes that love must be mutual, not one-sided. He doesn't try to persuade someone to see what he has to offer. He knows that if someone doesn't appreciate him, she's simply not meant for his life. He won't lower his expectations just to keep someone close. He won't tolerate disrespect or inconsistency just to avoid being alone. He knows that self-betrayal is far more painful than heartbreak. Standards protect him from emotional chaos. They keep him aligned with relationships that are healthy, reciprocal, and genuine. Women respect this kind of man because his standards reflect strength, confidence, and emotional maturity. He is not controlled by fear of losing someone. He is not driven by insecurity or scarcity. He knows that the right person will never require him to abandon himself. When he holds his standards high, he becomes more attractive, not because he is unavailable, but because he is grounded. He moves with purpose. He chooses with awareness. He loves with intention, not desperation. For him, love is not a pursuit. It is a meeting point. It is where two people arrive equally, both contributing, both respecting, both choosing. And so he builds his relationships on truth and alignment, not on effort that must be constantly proven. His standards become the quiet proof of what he believes about himself, and that belief sets the tone for every connection he allows into his life. Walking away protects his dignity and redefines the connection from strength, not fear, because it is a conscious decision grounded in self-respect rather than emotional desperation. A man who walks away is not abandoning the relationship. He is refusing to remain in a dynamic that threatens his integrity. He understands that staying in a situation where he is undervalued forces him to shrink, compromise, or chase, and he refuses to operate from weakness. When he steps back, he is choosing dignity over dependency. He is choosing clarity over confusion. He is choosing strength over fear of loss. Fear keeps most people stuck. Fear makes them cling to relationships that no longer serve them, fight for attention that isn't returning, and hold on to someone who has already mentally checked out. But he is different. He does not fear losing someone who cannot meet him with honesty and respect. He fears losing himself in the process of trying to keep something that is slipping away. So walking away becomes his protection. It is his way of preserving his identity, his confidence, and his emotional foundation. This act redefines the connection because it forces a shift in energy. When he steps away, the dynamic instantly changes. Instead of him being the one who tries harder, explains more, or carries the emotional weight, the responsibility shifts back to its rightful balance. His absence creates space for reflection for both him and the other person. She begins to feel the gravity of his presence by experiencing the quiet of his absence. He begins to see the situation clearly without emotional noise. Distance has a way of revealing what proximity hides. Walking away also communicates that he values quality over attachment. If a connection requires him to beg, tolerate disrespect, or compromise his worth, it is not a connection built on mutual respect. He knows that love should elevate him, not drain him. So when he leaves, he is not trying to hurt her. He is showing her and himself that he refuses to accept anything less than a relationship that honors him. His dignity remains intact because he chose himself instead of fighting for something that no longer reflected his value. This decision comes from strength because he understands the difference between walking away and running away. Walking away is intentional. It comes from reflection, awareness, and emotional maturity. He is not avoiding the connection. He is redefining it. He is choosing to step back so the truth can rise to the surface. And when he returns or decides not to return, it will be based on clarity, not fear or pressure. Women respect this kind of man because he does not beg for love or negotiate his self-worth. He does not stay in situations that break him down or silence his needs. His strength lies in his willingness to detach from anything that disrupts his peace. Walking away becomes his way of setting a new standard for how he must be treated. It shows that he is not controlled by emotions but guided by principles. And that kind of strength is rare because most people cling out of fear while he walks away out of dignity. A man who can let go teaches her what true respect looks like by first giving it to himself, because letting go is not a sign of indifference. It is a declaration of inner strength. He understands that holding on to someone who no longer values his presence, who treats him with inconsistency, or who fails to reciprocate his energy only diminishes him. Instead of clinging to an emotional illusion, he chooses to honor his own worth. Letting go becomes the ultimate expression of self-respect, and through that, he sets a standard for how he expects to be treated. He does not guilt her, pressure her, or try to negotiate his value. He knows respect cannot be demanded, it must be earned, and the first person who must offer him that respect is himself. By stepping away from situations where he is not appreciated, he creates emotional space, space where truth replaces fantasy, where dignity replaces desperation, and where clarity replaces confusion. His ability to let go shows her that he is not willing to sacrifice his integrity for the sake of attachment. His strength lies in the quiet confidence that he will never lose what is meant for him. He doesn't chase, force outcomes, or beg for love to stay. When he lets go, he is saying, I trust myself enough to walk away from anything that does not pour into me. That level of self-trust commands respect. It shows emotional maturity, confidence, and depth, qualities that elevate him in her eyes, even when he is no longer physically present. Letting go also shows her what true boundaries look like. Many people claim to have standards, but he lives by them. He refuses to stay in cycles of disrespect or emotional ambiguity. He refuses to accept bare minimum behavior. He refuses to let someone treat him as an option while he is offering loyalty. These choices are not made to prove anything to her. They are made to protect the foundation of his character. And ironically, this is what makes her respect him even more. His ability to let go teaches her a powerful lesson. Respect begins with how you treat yourself. When she sees him prioritize his peace over drama, his dignity over attachment, and his growth over stagnation, she realizes that he is a man of principle. He is not driven by insecurity or fear of being alone. He is driven by the belief that he deserves a connection built on mutual devotion and honesty. Through his actions, he shows her that love rooted in respect is far stronger than love rooted in fear of loss. And in that moment, she begins to understand the value of a man who will not betray himself to keep someone close. She sees that letting go is not rejection. It is alignment. It is self-preservation. It is self-love. His ability to walk away from what doesn't honor him teaches her that a real connection thrives only when two people respect themselves first. By respecting himself, he inadvertently teaches her how to respect him and how to respect herself. That is the power of a man who knows when to let go. In the end, the man who knows when to leave carries a strength that cannot be taught. It is lived, practiced, and earned. Every choice he makes reflects a deep understanding of self-worth. He doesn't chase validation, he doesn't fight for attention, and he doesn't allow anyone to diminish him. Instead, he moves with intention, clarity, and emotional discipline. His silence becomes power. His boundaries become truth. His willingness to walk away becomes the ultimate proof that he values himself more than any temporary connection. Women respect him not because he is distant or detached, but because he is grounded. He stands firm in who he is and refuses to compromise his dignity for anything or anyone. By leaving when respect slips, by protecting his peace, and by holding himself to higher standards, he resets every dynamic he steps into. He shows that real love is built on mutual honor, not fear, not pressure, not desperation. A man like this teaches others how to treat him simply by how he treats himself. His strength elevates him, his self-respect defines him, and his ability to let go, walk away, or remain silent when necessary becomes the very thing that makes him unforgettable. In choosing himself, he teaches everyone around him what true respect really looks like.